lie. Welcome to the Players Lounge.
Everybody, welcome back to another edition of the post-game reaction. It's a much happier one this week, and you'll notice some different faces. So I'm covering this week. Alex Markham covering for Cal Beck and his hosting duties. Cal and his family are trying to figure out if they have COVID right now. So kind of a fun little time of the Beck household. And I got my guy Josh Nurse. Josh, how are you, man?
Doing good, man. Good to be back on for another jolly episode this week.
Love having you back on, man. So Zach would have been on. He's got I know Damari Simpkins. He's in town. I think he's got a couple other people in town. So just kind of looking out for them. Just kind of having a nice little weekend. So we'll be having him back, and then both of you guys going back and forth again, man. That was a fun time on the 48-hour rule podcast this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So, dude, we got some fun stuff to talk about, man. Some fun stuff. Dude, when we were doing our predictions, we didn't come anywhere near what the score ended up being. 53-7, man. Dude, like, how surprised were you? And especially the fact that it was a true freshman that rose to that moment on that stage after Utah just had a big, tough rivalry defeat, man. That was huge.
Yeah, it absolutely was huge. And to be honest, I was blown away. Like, I was expecting Utah to win. Like, obviously, like, when we called our score predictions, we thinking like, it may not be a super high scoring game because we don't want them to, feed the true freshman or give him too much on his plate early and, give him this and give him that. And man, he took it. He took his opportunity and ran with it like wholeheartedly. And this is exactly what I meant about like, don't feel sorry for yourselves about last week. Obviously, last week was a tough loss, and I don't know if they heard me all the way over here in Germany or whatever the case may have been, but they definitely showed up ready to play because I wasn't expecting a 43-0 at half. I remember like checking my phone and I'm like, whoa, 43, like what's going on?
It's kind of like that clip that's going around viral on social media right now, man. I know you weren't able to see it yet, but Ocho Cinco and Shannon Sharp sitting there, they're talking about the game, and he's like, oh man, it's 43-0. Then he looks like at halftime.
Yeah, halftime. And I had the same reaction because I looked and I'm like, oh, 43. I'm thinking it's like third quarter, maybe the third. And I'm like, no, it says half. I'm like, oh my God. Halftime is insane. That's insane.
And again, with the true freshman quarterback, okay. And then on the defensive end, you're missing Lander Barton for a half too, which is something we'll be talking about a little bit as well because his replacement balled out, man. But when it comes down to it, here's the even crazier thing, Josh, is you, me, and Zach were talking and expecting Byrd to start. Okay, so we are correct on that. Now, the thing that was crazy to all this is Tuesday and Wednesday last week. Byrd got the starters reps in practice. Okay, Thursday hit. Devin's getting a bunch of the reps. I don't know if he got the majority of the starters reps or what, right? But he was getting a lot more reps. I had heard midweek that there was no chance in hell that he was even going to be able to be ready to play in this game. So just the fact that he was able to be out on the field and be able to take those reps in practice. At one point, okay, it was such a yo-yo that there was some assumption early Friday that a very still injured Devin Dampier could be starting in that game. Okay. The crazy thing to it is how Utah still wins that game. I mean, look, Colorado's defense is bad, right? But and their offense isn't great either. But how much more of a question? It's crazy to sit back and think how much more of a question that could have been if Dampier would have tried to go out there playing hurt on his best, where he's hurt being his biggest asset, his legs, right? I mean, you talked about it great on the 48-hour rule, just talking about, an 85% Devin Dampier would be the cutoff for you. And you felt like even that was generous because, again, his best asset is his legs, just like Zach said as well.
Yep.
So definitely just the fact that Byrd was able to stay locked in that way as well,
Yeah.
with that yo-yo, knowing that was coming on, because he's had a lot of the first team reps the entire season, to be honest, in practice, because, Dampier being Dampier and nursing injuries,
Right.
I'd love your take on this, right? And I know that you're not going to say, "Oh, it's Bird's job," but at what point? So say Dampier ends up sitting out another week, okay,
Mhm.
and Bird comes in, and this time around, it's very easily something to sit back and say, like, okay, well, Dev is close, but we're comfortable enough going with Bird. Let's let Dev heal up, right?
Mhm.
How much more film do you need to see from Bird? And there is that one area where he needs to fix his completion percentage, okay? But how much more
Right.
film do you need to see on Bird before, and success from Bird, before you can maybe sit back and say, like, okay, it's time to have a conversation on maybe not what's going on with the quarterback position for the rest of the year. Maybe a healthy Dampier is absolutely the guy, but when the end of the season hits and there's that NIL factor, it's like there's potential conversations that need to be had.
Yeah, there's definitely some major conversations need to be had because the reality of it is like we constantly been saying, Bird is a true freshman. So you have to think about the future. You have to think about longevity, and you have to think about, like, if he's showing this right now, this type of potential and this type of, this how do I put it? This level of skill at such a young age and such early point in his career, like, you have to take that into consideration because, sad as it may be, like we always talk about, the college football landscape is getting a little bit similar to the NFL, where everything comes down to business now. So, like we was talking about with NIL and stuff like that, and it's like, you know we love Dampier, you know what I'm saying, we love him, ride with him, as best we can.
He's
But
he's the best guy right now. He is
yeah,
the
yeah,
best
for
guy
sure.
right now. But
For sure.
I
But in
try, I didn't
terms
mean to
of
cut you
thinking
off.
of the future, and this is, if I were in this position as a coach, and Wit, it's kind of always been his forte is to let guys compete. You know what I mean? Compete to earn things. Like, that's just always kind of been how it is, and that's kind of how I would keep it. Like, granted, we know what Dampier is capable of, but we don't fully know what this kid is capable of, but until we see more of him. You know what I mean? So, like, yesterday was just a flash of that. Like, okay, you know what I mean? But I think you need to see the good and the bad in order to truly be able to make you know, a good decision based on that moving forward. And I feel like, with Dampier, with him being hurt, like I said, his number one priority needs to be finding a way to get back to 100%. And then once that happens, him and Bird should compete, because I don't think, me personally, I don't think, just because you were the starter, you came from somewhere, whoop, whoop, whoop. Like, to me, it's a week to week thing. Like, you have to earn it week in and week out. And if this kid right here is playing better than you have been playing, that's who needs to be playing. That's who we need to stick with. Works, because
Mhm.
Utah is all, I don't know. It's just like a thing with us where we go away from what's working, and then everything blows up in our face, and that doesn't need to happen. That doesn't need to happen if we're trying to salvage our season. In my opinion.
For sure. And want to stay on the offense, right? But want to make a quick comment. We talk about how well the offense did in this game. Okay. The
Hmm.
defense was just as good. And it's it's not as common with several other schools to sit back and say, "Oh my God, I was blown away by this offense," right? And then at the same time,
Right.
too, sit back and say, "Well, yeah, look at the defense too." It's a common trend with Utah, right? Where it's like it seems like anytime the offense has a big game, a lot of that is with the defense giving them momentum too, and the defense throwing a
Right.
damn near shutout, right?
Hmm.
So really looking forward to getting your perspective on that. But before we dive into all that, you're mentioning some of the stuff with Bird and Dampier. Okay. Um, you know, a lot of positives in this game. There's still some stuff to be able to nitpick, right?
Right.
So when it comes to Bird, he went into this game 9 for 9, right? In all of his other times so far this season. Nobody expected that to continue, right? And a lot of that was in mop up time. So we knew it was going to regress. He started off slow. I want to say he started off like 1 of 7. Orion,
Hmm.
the punter, he was the first one completing a pass on the fake punt, which was
Yeah.
crazy, and then Byrd kind of calmed his nerves, right? And then, from there, um, a lot of those, I mean, you can throw the blame on him for the incompletions. He's the quarterback. They're his stats, they're his numbers, right? But when you look at it, there's that continued theme of Utah's wide receivers for Dampier and for Byrd are not gaining enough separation. And that's causing a lot of issues where it, if anybody goes back and watches the tape, yeah, he's throwing those balls on a rope, right? And a lot of times it was almost a necessity, right? He
Right.
can throw it with a little bit more. He can throw it with different touches, but a lot of those throws, he was having to do that with necessity to fit it in those tight windows and
Hmm.
hitting the guys in the hands, them dropping them, just going outside. But when he needed to make plays, man, he made plays. And the touchdown pass and the sideline pass, both to Larry Simmons,
Yeah.
dude, you watch those, man, and it's like, man, he's making those as a true freshman.
Exactly. And that you can't ignore that. You can't ignore that. When you see stuff like that from a true freshman, you absolutely cannot ignore that. And like you were saying, to go back to the wide receivers, like it's just been a common occurrence with them not being able to get separation. Like I don't know at this point, we're pretty much halfway through the season, moving into the second half of the season. At this point, like if you hadn't been getting separation before, you're not gonna get it later on. So I don't know what how we can kind of build around Bird to help him in terms of our receivers with getting on the ball, even though they're not getting separation. I'm pretty sure there's something to be done, but maybe not a whole lot to be done because at the end of the day, when you play wide receiver, if you want to catch the ball, you have to create separation. You have to be able to give the quarterback something to work with. Like it can't like we was talking about him fitting the ball in the tight windows. It was a necessity because that's what you're literally forcing him to do. He's like, okay, well, you're the guy, you're the read. I have to make this throw, but I'm not just going to chuck it up there or lobby it up there for anybody to go get it. So I'm going to put some zip on it and hope that, and like you said, that ball hit your hands. I've seen way, way, way too many drops from these receivers. You could say anything about the defenders, but the reality of it is great receivers make when that ball hits their hands, it's a catch, like point blank, period. Like whether the defender's on your back, whether he's already tackling you before the ball gets there, great receivers catch the ball, point blank, period. And we have not done that at any point during this season. And it's at some
I'm
point it's
intrigued by
gonna
Simmons.
change.
I'm intrigued by Simmons, but Dampier hasn't been able to get him the ball enough, right?
Well,
Um,
right.
and then and another thing, like if Zach was on this right now, what he would be pointing at, what he would be pointing it out, because how we were talking about putting the zip on the ball is, again, like Dampier is the best quarterback for this team this year when he's healthy, right?
Right.
Okay. But at the same time, too, we've constantly harped on his deep balls and how they just float and then they hit that peak and they hang, and it's not ideal, right? Zach would be sitting here saying he'd much rather see somebody put that zip on the ball on those deep
Mhm.
balls and, just have the wide receiver drop it or put it where, like, maybe it's not the best pass and, the DB has to do something with it and then they can't because it's that bullet as opposed to just that heave, and it's that 50-50 ball that, it's
Yeah,
not 50-50 with Utah's wide receivers, man. No offense to those wide
exactly.
receivers. It's damn near 25-75 and
Right,
75
right.
for 75 for the defense.
Yeah. And that's the issue, especially like with I feel like, some of our wide receivers have good size, like the Merriweather kid and like they should be coming down with these passes. Like, you know what I mean? If it's a want to for me, I know when I played
Sure.
receiver, it was a want to for me. Like I didn't care. I would just tell the quarterback, just put it in the vicinity. It don't have to be an accurate pass. Just know I'm gonna catch the ball. And I feel like they need to adopt that same mentality in order to be great as a wide
Yeah.
receiver unit.
Yeah. Utah's top two wide receivers, Ryan Davis and Larry Simmons.
Hmm.
They played themselves up a level
Yeah,
in the NIL
absolutely.
game. Okay. And when you look at that, that might be something, and that's not a knock on any of the other guys, right? There's certain different factors you got to consider and figure in with everybody. But
Hmm.
that might be something that Utah sits back and takes a look at going into this off season, where it's like, okay, let's take a look at the guys that have played themselves up a level, or okay, do we have that? Do we have this extra money that we can go and we can pry like? And I'm just using a team example, okay, but that we can go and we can pry UCLA's top wide receiver away from them, and so on and
Hmm.
so forth, right? Those are the two angles that you've got to start looking at if you want to have quality wide receiver play, or start nailing it with the recruits.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said, like it's either or. Like like we talked about before, the college football landscape, pay to play, or it's do or die. Like you have to nail it with the recruits, and with the recruits, when they come to these games, they want to come to games like that. You know what
Mhm.
I'm saying? They want to see a big win, and they want to see the energy and the atmosphere, and they want to see that ball thrown around, and they want to see spectacular catches like the one Simmons had, because they get to thinking like, hey, I can make that same catch out here. You know what I'm saying? And had a crowd go crazy for me. That's all it is with
Mhm.
the recruits. And as far
Mhm.
as we're going to get these top receivers from other schools. Like, yeah, it's all about money now. So, like I said on the last episode, you got to figure out a way to pay to play.
You really do, man, dude. And then when we were doing our over unders and we were talking about some different things, and Zach was saying like, "Hey, look, Colorado's not as bad as their record says." And one of the
Hmm.
things that I pointed out, like, they weren't any better than 40th in like all these relevant categories, right? Except like 23rd or 21st, and that was like something on kickoffs. Okay, and
Hmm.
when I mentioned, because when we were talking about the rushing over under, and Zach made his prediction on it, and I said, Zach, I'm like, I gave Colorado more credit. I said they were 103rd in the country.
Hmm.
They were 120th.
Man,
After
that's
this game, they
bad.
might be bottom 5, man.
That's bad. Like that's
It's
really,
brutal.
really bad.
It's brutal. So, you still got to sit back and say, like, good job on this, guys. Like, you found the weakness and you dominated. It was, let's see, I want to say it was like 587 or 589 yards, 587 of total offense, right?
Wow.
Rushing wise, 422. Okay. So annihilated them, absolutely annihilated them. But at the same,
Jesus.
but at the same time, too, you got to sit back and take that into perspective. The one nice thing I really liked about this is um, Daniel Bray is going to be a stud, okay, but I still view him as more of a specialty back right now,
Yeah.
just because how
Same.
he's getting his yards. Yeah, yeah.
Like
You
a gadget guy
finally have
almost, right?
what's up?
Like a gadget guy almost, right?
Right now, yeah. Right
Yeah.
now, until he gains more weight. Right now, yeah. But this was, so if you consider that, if you factor that into play, okay, this was the first time Utah's had a legit every down running back go
Mhm.
over 100 yards for the season with Wayshawn Parker. So throw out the fact that this was such a bad rush defense, just the fact that they were able to have the overall success that they had on the ground, but they finally were able to get one of their quality backs, because Utah has quality running backs, to be able to break through and get that 100 yards. I think it was maybe just under 150. That's a
Mm.
big deal going forward at a time in the season when you needed a pick me up.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
let's we can talk about offense, man. I don't know if there's anything else you want to chime in on that, but I think one of the fun parts is going to be talking about this defense too.
Yeah, as far as the offense goes, I think number one thing that's most important is that they just keep building off of that win, keep building off of that offensive performance. Ride the high, ride the high, but don't let it get too don't get too high. You know what I'm saying? Come find a medium and come back down and still put your head down and work and get ready for the next opponent. But find a way to keep continuously building off that rushing performance, build on the pass performance, and figure out different ways to build around Bird if he is the starter. Going forward with Dampier being hurt, but I think they need to just that should be the main focus for Utah is to build off that offensive performance, and the offense needs to keep feeding off the defense as well because clearly when everything is in sync, when all three phases of the game are in sync, it's
All
pretty
three
much
were.
unstoppable. Pretty much,
All
So
three were. Yeah. And one more thing before we kick into the defense, because it's something we were talking about before we jumped off this as well, man. You're very familiar with seeing a freshman get thrust into action on a very good football team
yeah.
and seeing him dominate. Jason Shelley. Crazy
Hmm.
thing is, though, is like we're sitting there talking about it and how well Byrd did. Shelley was a redshirt freshman. So
Yeah.
how
And Shelly,
reminiscent was watching something like this compared to like, maybe bringing it back to, when you were watching Jason Shelley step in for Snoop.
it's the same. Like I when I see it, I see the exact same thing because like I remember Shelly stepping in for the Oregon game against Justin Herbert. So that was like his first game. And, that's a big game for us, I mean, we ended up
Mhm.
winning that game too. So it was just like, just to see like the confidence I saw from Bird yesterday is the exact same confidence I saw in Shelly. Like when Shelly was out there that game, there was no panic. I could see it on his face pregame. Like there was no panic. There was just calm, cool, collected. Let's get this done. This is my opportunity. Let's take advantage. And I saw that. Like that's the same thing I saw from Bird. So to see that, kind of like pop up again, but in a different timeline, you know what I'm saying? It was actually pretty cool.
Yeah, and complete agreement with you, man. It's just it's fun seeing a freshman step in with that kind of swagger and being able to dominate. I mean, Utah had the experience with Wilson last year, him being a freshman, all those games, and he had
Hmm.
moments, but it was never on this level. It wasn't close.
Yeah. Yeah. Not
So
close at
and
all.
no, and it's got to be encouraging for the fans and quite honestly the program to be able to see that, just knowing like, okay, yeah, factor in the NIL. The NIL sucks, but at the same time too, we've got a guy that if we can keep him, the future is nice. That's
Yeah.
exactly what the program is saying, right? And so that's big. That's big. Let's see. All right, man. When so defensively, okay. Lots to like on this. At one point, it was funny, man. So I was gonna tweet out at one point saying Colorado was at 8 total yards in the half, and then like what Bird was, period. Okay. So
Hmm.
I didn't do it. And I think I was having some Wi-Fi issues. My guys were up in the booth last night, so I was down in the stands taking it in, trying to watch everything. But so had the bad Wi-Fi, and by the time it started working, Colorado had negative 18 yards for the first
Man.
half, and I think that's what they actually ended up with at the end of the first half, man. The beauty of it is, so let's see here. So total yards, okay, 140. That was going up against guys that you are rarely gonna hear on Utah's defense this year. Some of them maybe
Right,
special
right,
teams guys, others it was outrageous, right?
right.
102 passing yards, 138. I'm sorry, 102 passing yards, 38 rushing yards. Like complete and utter total domination. Okay.
God.
Um, yeah, yeah, it was here's the other thing too, right? Like I'm taking a look at some of these stats. You know, Utah just dominated. It wasn't like Colorado shooting themselves in the foot either. They had 2 penalties for 15 yards. You know,
Right.
uh, man, within that first half, when Utah was absolutely dominating, Trey Reynolds stepped in for Lander Barton,
Hmm.
and they look, they're gonna play better throughout the season regardless with Lander, right? But they
Right.
actually had a better first half with Trey. than they did with Lander being in his portion of the second half, man. I want to say Reynolds had at least one sack. He was all over the place.
Mhm.
Teo Johnson, after a rough game last week, gets that big pick. He also had a really nice pass breakup. What did you see out of the defense to really come away impressed and feel confident going forward?
What I saw was exactly what was missing last week, which is tenacity. That's what I saw. I saw relentless, smart, nasty ball hogs. Scally talks about it all the time. Those four letters. That defense that we saw yesterday is the defense we need to see every single game in order for this team to be successful. And not that they weren't, that last week, but or like, against Texas Tech, but I want to see the consistency. You know what I'm saying? Like this defense, what I saw yesterday is what I want to see every single game. They were tackling, they were hitting, they were blitzing. They had Caden Salter looking like he saw a ghost. He didn't know what to do against that defense. So if we can keep that up, and we can also another thing, like building off that, especially after last week, you know what I'm saying? With the tackling and all of that stuff. Like just keep building off of it. That's the main thing we need to do is build this thing up brick by brick in order to salvage this season. Because the defense is always going to be the defense, right? So
Mhm.
with Lander and the kid that replaced Lander, like last week, what I saw, like he was kind of slow to process the play where the Parker Kingston kid scored. Now, like like yesterday, he was everywhere, and I'm like, see, that's film study. That's
Mhm.
film study. That's getting the reps at practice. That's understanding like, all right, this is my opportunity to show who I am, and he definitely showed who he was yesterday, and that's good. That's good to know moving forward for the future of the program too, is to have a guy like that, knowing that he's capable of doing those things on the defensive side of the ball.
So you were laughing about a quote that Deion said, right? And so he was talking in his post game, just the about the amount that Utah would just blitz and blitz and blitz, and they wouldn't stop
Hmm.
blitzing. To summarize, say the quote on how you remember it, so that we don't, so that YouTube doesn't know us with copyright infringement. This was
Dion
great,
said
man.
Dion said he said I ain't got beat that bad since my mama beat me. And if a coach, a head coach at a Division I program can say that about a team doing that to him, it was bad. It was real bad. It was real
Uh-huh,
bad. And we
uh-huh.
talking about Deion Sanders here now. So, and he also talked about. He said, 400 yards rushing, you're not gonna win. 300 yards rushing, you're not gonna win. Giving up 250 yards rushing, you're not gonna win. Uh, block punt, not gonna win. Fake punt, you're not gonna win. And as he said those things, he's just describing how Utah was locked in all three phases of the game, and that is what we need. Like if we can get that consistently, telling you, we're one of the best teams in the country without a doubt. Like Nick Saban said it. All of the most prestigious coaches say it. Kirk Herbstreit, they all say it. You know what I'm saying? When we play to the best of our ability and we're locked in on all three phases, we are almost impossible to beat.
Absolutely, man. With talking about Dion, I saw something, and it's kind of this is a perfect point to make when it comes to Colorado and their approach. Okay. Dion's a great coach, but at the same time, too, you know, the level of chances he gives certain people, the type of personalities he tries to bring in, and so on. If
Mhm.
if you ask me, and so I'm really kind of curious your take on this. Okay, sometimes I think the way he wants to build that program with certain people around can be a detriment to him and a detriment to the program. Okay, Warren Sapp, legendary football player, right? But I don't know if you saw the stuff pregame where he's going around on the field, he's dancing around in his sweats and his headphones, and he goes and he does this like little jump spin and like kicks over the pylon, goes up to the next pylon, does it, and jumps and kicks it. And he's just like the sound to it. I mean, he's sitting there sounding like he's just like all of a sudden had this memory trip where he's just wanting to have fun and be a child, like a little child, right? Just
Right.
it was weird. It was unique, right? I'm not slamming him at all, right? That's him. That's his personality, right? And then you see Dion go and pick him up, doing the proper, courteous thing, going pick him up, picking him up, and it's like, but the reason I bring this up, man, is I feel like having personalities like that around that program makes it seem like maybe they're not taking it as serious, and that's where they're getting their asses handed to them because
Hmm.
I'm sorry, Warren Sapp's going around doing that stuff before the game, right?
Right.
And people can say it's a small little thing. Well, small little things kind of add up personality wise, right? Look at Colorado's rush defense, man. Like
Yeah.
it,
And yeah, and that's true. Like you said, like and it low key, that's how it happens. It's always people when you like minimize it and you think like, oh, it's just a little, it's not that big of a deal. Those little things over time, continuously, they add up. You know what I'm saying? So I do think you are right about that. That I think Dion should take a step back because one thing Dion is, he's honest. Like no matter what, win or lose, he's an honest coach. So I think that's definitely something that he needs to kind of take a step back and kind of zoom out the lens and kind of take a look at that and in terms of trying to better his program because I want Dion to be successful. You know what I mean? Because he was
it's
a
good for it's good for football.
it's good for football and it's good for him. Like I would love to see him succeed as a coach. You know what I mean? With as great of a player as he was, but like I do think that those type of personalities. I get it. People are going to be who they are. You know what I'm saying. So you don't ever want to try to change people. But if you're talking about in terms of being a successful coach and building a successful program, and don't get me wrong, like he turned Colorado around to a degree. Or it seemed like he did. You know what I'm saying with Travis and Shadur, and now it seems like they're kind of headed back down the hill. And if he wants to prevent that from happening, you definitely got to take a look at the bigger picture. And like, granted, I get it. These guys are Hall of Famers. They were great players, but great players don't always make great coaches. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's people who didn't play in the NFL that make one of the greatest coaches ever in the NFL didn't play in the NFL, Mike Tomlin. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, you got to take a look at those things, in talking about being a great coach and building a great program. And yeah, Dion definitely needs to do that, and I think he needs to do it fast.
You mentioned the thing about the coach, the NFL coach, right? When it comes to even just Utah staff in general, right? Colton Swan is one of the best assistant coaches in college football. Okay,
Yes, absolutely.
when Utah hired him, a lot of people were sitting back like, "You sure?"
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that is in no offense or slam to Colton at all. Colton is
Hmm.
phenomenal,
Yeah,
right?
Colton.
It's just
Yeah, shout out to Coach Swan,
it,
man. I love you.
yeah.
Coach Swan
No,
is one of the most.
he's going
He's the
places.
greatest human being like I've ever been around for sure.
Yeah. And it's just a case in point of like, don't just go after the personalities and the egos and what somebody's already done on a football field,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Because yeah, I mean, Colton Swan is if you take a look at everybody on Utah's coaching staff outside of Scally, right, being
Right.
named the head coach in waiting, I would sit back and say right now, Colton Swan might have the best coaching trajectory out of all the others, right? And
Yeah.
there's some great coaches on Utah staff, but it's just I only mention this stuff again just because you know comparing a hire like Kyle hiring him to Dion hiring Warren Sapp, and look where that's gotten Utah. Look where that's getting Colorado.
Exactly. Yeah, and the go like, and another thing I want to highlight about Colton Swan is like what he did with Devin Lloyd. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, like he took Devin Lloyd's game to a whole nother. I mean, we already knew Devin was gonna be Devin. You know what I mean? But just the cerebral part of the game that he understands is just it's really almost second to none. Like, I remember when he came to Utah and I'm like, Colton Swan, okay, because he came from Weber State, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
okay, Weber State, you know what I mean? So I'm like, we're gonna see what type of coach he was, because our last linebacker coach wasn't really, he was okay, but I felt like it was more so of our linebackers making plays more than it was the coaching. But when you
Yeah,
combine elite play with elite coaching, man, Devin was the stuff Devin was doing as a sophomore was crazy. It was crazy. It was insane. As a redshirt sophomore, the stuff he was doing, I'm like, yeah, okay, Devin's going. I knew early on he was going. You know what I mean?
dude.
But that's just such a testament of Coach Swan's coaching coming in. He was locked in, and he just fit the mold of the Utah defense as a coach, and he blended in. He blended in so perfectly, like it was almost as if he had been there, like he had already been there. And
Mhm.
it was just a wonderful thing to be a part of, and I'm glad I got to experience being or you just experience his coaching or just being able to witness that as a player.
Yeah, no, he's like I said, man, he's going places. He's going as you were wrapping up there, since you were talking about Devin, I literally started scrolling the box scores here because I was like, oh, it's Sunday, it's Devin Lloyd watch time, right? Because
Yeah.
man, he's dude. If the season ended today, Devin Lloyd is very likely the NFL defensive MVP.
Yes, for
It's
sure.
outrageous, man.
Yeah.
That's unreal. Absolutely unreal. Just to see where
Yeah,
he's come
Devin.
from.
If Devin, I can't believe the Jags did not pick up his 5th-year option. That is insane.
And
Insane
he's
to
going to
me.
benefit from it.
But he is exactly. I was gonna say somebody gonna have to pay the man because he's definitely gonna get paid, and he deserve it. He deserve it. I remember in 2017, me and him, we that was he was a freshman out of high school. I had just came from junior college. We both didn't really play that much, and I remember one night during fall camp, me and him kind of just chilling outside the hotel talking, and I think this was like right after I got moved to safety, and I'm like thinking about, I'm like, man, I want to transfer. I didn't come here to play safety. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And we were just sitting there talking, and he's like, man, I thought I would be playing off the rip too. And then we both was just talking. We was like, you know what? Maybe this is like, maybe this is God trying to show us something. Maybe we gotta just trust the process. And he was like, I'm gonna trust the process. He's like, I'm gonna do my time here. I'm gonna put in the work, and to see what Devin is now. It really does make me happy because I vividly remember that conversation because we were sitting in this car when we had this conversation, and then like just to see how like things panned out for both of us, like yeah, like that
Mhm.
was a true testament of hard work and trusting the process and
Dude,
trusting the
yeah.
coaches too, trusting Coach Scally and their vision that they had for us. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, when they moved me to safety, I was not happy about that. I was not happy about that at all. But
Josh,
it
man,
turned out
you should have like had softer hands, right? Is that what they told you?
no, it wasn't even that. To honestly, yeah, I honestly think it was all a part of the plan.
Yeah.
Like Coach
Honestly,
Scally,
I'm not gonna lie. I think that I remembering back because of doing the recruiting stuff. I think I remember hearing them saying something like, "Man, he could turn into a hell of a safety." I'm not gonna
yeah,
lie,
I
dude.
think that was part of the plan for all
Yeah,
together because it was like he's long, he's rangy, he can run, he's got good feet, he can catch, and like I just remember them approaching me like, "Who do you hang out with?" And I'm like, they're like, "You seem to hang around a lot of defensive players," and I'm like, "Man," it was like, "Yeah, the offense kind of figures they don't really need you," and I'm like, "Wait, what you mean they don't need me?" Like I got recruited to come up here as a receiver. But that turned out to be one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. You know what I mean? Like it changed
yeah.
my whole trajectory of everything. Like who knows what would have happened with my career had I stayed at receiver? You know?
For real, dude. And you know, I just had to give you crap about the hands because what's funny is that's the typical narrative when you switch over to that side, right? But at Utah,
Yeah.
it's completely different. Oh, you're one of our
Hmm.
best players. You're on defense.
Yeah. And
It's kind of,
man,
it's I don't
it
know. It's
was
crazy how that goes here.
yeah, it does. And but that's the one thing I've learned. Like they know what they see. They have good eyes. You know what I'm saying? So they like I just at first I didn't trust it, but looking back, like they know what they're looking at. They know what they're seeing. So
They do.
if anybody's watching this podcast, you're a current player and you thinking like, man, I just got my position changed, whatever, and You not really just trust them. I'm telling you, trust them, trust them, trust them. Just work hard and trust them because that's exactly what I did. I had never played defense a day in my life. In my entire football career, I've never touched the defensive side of the ball. And they turned me into an NFL corner in 2 years. That's unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So they know what they're seeing. They
Yeah,
know for
yeah.
sure.
And then one point on exactly what you're talking about there, and then we'll kind of kick into wrapping up here. But yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, you talk about trust in the process, right? With Utah,
Hmm.
it's twofold, okay? And NIL's kind of throwing a wrench into some of it now. It's a little bit more difficult on this, but you talk about trust in the process on position switches, and the proof is in the pudding with when it comes to Utah and coaches, right? Especially when
Hmm.
moving somebody to defense. Then you got somebody like a Terrell Burgess, right? That man, he just busted his ass year after year after year playing
Hmm.
special teams. I mean, you even look at like Cody Barton, right?
Yep.
Both of those guys, long NFL careers, and they trusted the process and blew up as seniors.
Hmm. Exactly.
You don't see that often anymore. You weren't even really seeing it that often with guys back then, too. So that's what just
Yeah.
sets Utah apart, really, when it
Hmm.
when you think of it.
Yeah.
But all right, man. So let's see. We'll talk. We'll try to maybe get you if you got some time. If 48 hour because of you being in Germany might be a little bit more difficult for you to make work this week, right? But we'll get you back on here soon here in the next little bit. So since that might be a little bit more difficult, just general thoughts going into Cincinnati, and then also maybe it's just some closing thoughts from this week.
Man, Cincinnati is gonna be. I I feel like Cincinnati is gonna be another game, and when I say another game like Texas Tech, I mean in a sense the magnitude of it. And what I mean by like I feel like it's gonna come down to the wire, right? Cincinnati's a good team. They're on a roll. We're building off a dub, a pretty big dub. You know what I mean? So both teams are coming in with high energy. You know what I mean? So it's gonna be a game of who can make the least mistakes, who can lock in, and who can win the situational battle, and who can win the trenches. That is going to be the determining factor because against Tech, we did not win the trenches. We did not do good against that defensive line. And like I said before earlier, we have to build off this offensive performance, this rushing performance. Like that is going to be key because if we can fire on all three phases of this game, Cincinnati's going to have a tough time. Because the fact of the matter is, they're coming to Rice Eccles. It's hard to win at Rice Eccles. You know what I mean? So we have to take that into our advantage. And I feel like Utah get the job done for sure. I think they will.
It's going to be a top 25 matchup. Utah coming in at 24 again this week. Cincinnati
Mhm.
moving up to 17. ESPN game day is going to be there. Who's your guess on the celebrity picker? I'm going because Post Malone does not have a tour date right now. I'm saying either Posty or Alex Smith. I don't think Alex has done the guest picker thing yet. And Alex works for
Mm.
ESPN. So
Yeah, I think it'd probably be Alex Smith. That seemed like it would seem like the most feasible. You know what I mean? And then of
yeah.
course, everybody loves Alex Smith. Who doesn't love Alex Smith?
So all right, man. Well, dude, I've appreciated your time. It's fun as always. Looking forward to having you on a ton of these, man. Ton of these.
Yeah, absolutely,
So,
man.
yeah.
For
All
sure.
right. Well, want to thank everybody for listening in. Want to continue to encourage everybody to like and subscribe. YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Also head over to utenation.com. Type in promo code all caps Ute50 for the coverage we got going over there since deciding to move my stuff over from the Rivals Network and being able to work on a few more other projects that are gonna be coming out here in the next little bit here too. So again, thank you everybody, and Josh, man, you are the man. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you for having me. It's always good to be on here.
Anytime, man. We'll be talking soon.
Yes, sir.
La, welcome to the Players Lounge. Yeah. When no other moment, man, it can't compare. Due to the obvious, people look at me and then they envious. And they the ones that be grinning and acting the friendliest.